Hello, thanks for joining us again today. Well, today it is Wednesday. It's July the 1st, and this is the first day of the second half of the year. And I realize probably where you're at, it's summertime. Boy, it's good and warm here. You can probably look at my face and see how red it is. That's sunburn. We've been out on the boat, and some of my wife's family has come in the last couple of weeks. We got more coming in actually today and this week, and she has five siblings, and they all live out of the area, and so they've been coming in. We've been able to spend some time with them, and that's been great. But the point is, it's good and warm. It is July, and I guess it's supposed to be that way. So we hope that you're staying healthy from this COVID-19 situation, and hopefully you're staying safe, of course. A lot of social unrest and all these things put together makes for some very difficult times, and that's why we began a little series here. It may not be that lengthy of a series because there's so many examples of this, but I guess the title to this little series is Shining Moments in Dark Times. And when it's been the very darkest, there's been some very shining moments that have made themselves manifested. And these are in the Bible. God did that for a reason. So we're going to look at another one today. There's so many examples, but this is one I think that obviously does stand out. We're going to be in the book of Daniel, Daniel chapter 3. If it's your custom to find your Bible and follow along, Daniel chapter 3. We'll read verses 17 and 18, and we'll bring you to the setting here and kind of tell you, what's happening. So when we read the verses, it'll make sense. Many of you understand the stories of the Bible, but you know what? There's some that do not, and we don't want to take for granted that all these important details are something that everybody knows. But again, thank you for watching our videos. We appreciate it. I noticed in the last 2 or 3 days, we've picked up a few more subscribers from the YouTube side of it. Thank you very much, whoever you are. That's been noticed. It's been noted, and I appreciate it. And for those who make comments on the Facebook and or YouTube, thank you very much. And I appreciate it. It's encouraging to me that what's being said is indeed being helpful. So we're going to look here at another one of our shining moments in a dark time, and Daniel chapter 3. Now, to give the setting here, of course, at this point, the children of Israel, they've lost everything as far as a home. There is no more nation. There was a divided kingdom, and of course that northern kingdom was actually overtaken before the southern kingdom. But when Jerusalem fell, that was kind of the official end of the nation of Israel as a whole, as an entire nation. And Nebuchadnezzar came in with his armies in about 588 BC is kind of a timetable that's given that they fell, and many of the people were deported 500 miles east into Babylon, the headquarters there of the Babylonian Empire. Some of the poorest of the people were left in the land, but there was these what we would consider people that were able to be trained and able to be given positions and different things, basically take the people and try to wipe out that heritage and wipe out the mindset of the Jewish people and kind of assimilate them to Babylonian culture and make them profitable really for their own kingdom. But here we have Daniel, and there was these 3 Hebrew boys that we're highlighting today, really just the 3 Hebrew boys. And when Daniel was able to interpret the dream for Nebuchadnezzar, then of course that gave him a chance to have a high position, and Nebuchadnezzar gave him a high position. The 3 Hebrew boys, of course, they were kind of part of that package deal also. But we find here in chapter 3 that Nebuchadnezzar builds this great golden image, and he commands everybody to bow down to it. The music would play, and it was a kind of a big deal, and people would bow down to it. Well, it was noted that 3 Hebrew boys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that's their Babylonian names, the Chaldean names given to them, that they didn't bow, and there was complaints made against that. It was brought before the king. The king says, "Oh, is that right?" So he confronted these 3 Hebrew boys, and here's basically where the conversation picks up at that point. They didn't bow down, of course, to the image, and they said, "We're not going to do that." But verse 17 says, "If it be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace." That was going to be the penalty, the punishment, a death penalty. You're going to be thrown into a burning fiery furnace for your disobedience, your lack of bowing down to the image, and they knew that. And it says, "And he will deliver us out of thine hand, O king. But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up." Now, here's what made the time even darker. Obviously, being on the spot like that, about to lose your life, That's pretty dark. That's pretty low. But the point I want to make is imagine all the people who were the Jewish people who bowed, who went ahead and bowed to the pressure and says, well, we don't want to lose our life, and we might as well go ahead and do it. We're here, and here we are. We've been deported in. We don't even have a home. The spiritual level was obviously very low at this point, but Daniel, he was a shining light during a dark time, and those three Hebrew boys. I don't know how many more, but to make it even darker was the fact that only three, and no doubt there was thousands that basically should have not bowed themselves, but they did. And so it was a dark time for the Jewish people. And here's these three being brought before Nebuchadnezzar. He's a ruthless king to start with. I mean, to have a burning fiery furnace as an execution chamber, that alone, of course, was fearful. And so the point is, they said to the king, look, our God is able to deliver us. So during these troublesome times, here's three important things to know. Number one, what God is able to do. What God is able to do. God is able to wipe out the coronavirus. God's able to do a lot of things, and the Bible's proven that he's done that. So, but we need to be mindful what God is able to do. And that's very important. If you look in the Bible, look in the Word of God, hear preaching, Sunday school lessons, you hear all these things, you've seen what God's able to do. And that needs to always be in our minds and in our hearts, what God is able to do. And if he's able to do it, then we should be available for God to use us to do whatever God's able to do. Number two, God could choose to not deliver. But they said, we're not going to bow to any other God, even if God does not deliver. And that's the attitude. That's something we need to know during these times. Don't just look around and say, well, everybody else is following a certain pattern. You just say to yourself, look, whether or not other people do it or don't do it, we know that if it's wrong, we're just not going to do it. I think it was Bob Jones Sr. who says, do right if the stars fall. And as you look around, if you look around all around you and you see other Christians who's caving on this and that and the other, then you just say, look, okay, I'm going to determine what's right. I'm going to let God lead me and guide me. And if I know what's right and what's wrong, then I'm going to go ahead and do right, even if God doesn't deliver me from a situation similar to this. And that's just the attitude to have. That's something we need to make sure is important to know. And then number three, God may reveal himself for the testimony against the enemy, but to also change an attitude or the heart. We know that Nebuchadnezzar, when he saw the fourth man in the fire there, the Son of God, he says, that looks like the Son of God. Now, how in the world would he even come close to even knowing anything about that? I believe God revealed that to him. And boy, all of a sudden he suddenly changed and says, if you don't do exactly what their God's doing, then, you're going to have big trouble. So he changed the heart of Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar noted that. And the point is, as we look all around us, you never know by your stand whose heart, a heart that you think would change in any degree. Well, you just don't know that. You don't know how God may use you for you taking your own stand and you saying, you know what? I'm going to be that shining light in a dark time. I'm going to be that example. And look, I'll guarantee nobody thought that Saul would become the Apostle Paul. I'll guarantee that. But boy, just like that, Saul was stricken down on the road to Damascus. There he was on his way doing what he had been doing. But you know what? That was a great turnaround. And God can still do things like that. So we need to make sure we understand what God is able to do. God may choose not to deliver in situations because God sometimes doesn't. But just to say, whether he does or he doesn't, we're going to do the right thing. We're not going to bow to any other God. And then, of course, God may just use you to reveal a testimony against those who oppose you and actually even change their heart and for salvation or whatever. So we need to think that during these times, I think God's given us a green light to go forward and let his mighty power be made known. And God says, you know what, my people, the attitude has been, one would chase 1,000. We don't back down because of pressure. We realize what God is able to do. We've seen what God has done, and we're going to have that attitude. And if God gives us the green light to go forward, let's do it. Let's go for it, as they say. So I hope you have a wonderful day. Of course, it being Wednesday, you've got Wednesday evening Bible study. Man, go in there with a great attitude, saying, I want to hear what God's got for me tonight. Don't just say, oh, here, we're going to do this again, and the same old, same old. No, you just be excited and say, God, you might just use me just like you did 3 Hebrew boys. You may not be in the same extreme situation, but you may be in a situation where you can have someone's attitude changed, a heart change even. And if nothing else, our own heart changed, so, or at least made more tender toward God. So have a great day. Stay safe and stay healthy. Until tomorrow, God bless you.